diabetes, heart disease, cancer, things like Alzheimer's.
We've got to ask ourselves what we need to do to make that happen. And that's what this entire program was designed to do, to become the most healthy and most exuberant, most vibrant that you can possibly be.
In part 3 in the Intestinal Health podcast, in regards to circadian rhythm, we talked about polyamines and polyamine levels.
Right.
Explain how polyamines relate to circadian rhythm.
Again, there's a biological feedback to polyamines and the B-mol clock structures and per2 or per 1 and 2 and CR1 and 2. And let me explain too more about that, because you did ask about that. B-mol and clock are two genetic expressions that set a circadian rhythm in motion. In other words, this is the structure of your superchiasmatic nucleus. B-mol and clock set it in motion, and once that signaling compound makes it into the cytoplasm, into the bloodstream, period, PER 1 and 2, and that stands for period, and cry 1 and 2, which is cryptochrome 1 and 2, they elevate in expression as a result of B-mol and clock being in the bloodstream. Those are things that are expressed by other cells so that they're a response to that B-mol and clock. In other words, it's almost like an irritated response to seeing B-mol and clock in the bloodstream. So the period and cryptochrome elevate their production. And when they become at a certain level, then that'll stop the B-mol and clock production. Once cryptochrome and period continue to grow in production, they then signal themselves to stop being produced. In other words, it becomes too much period and cryptochrome. So they then begin ceasing production. Once they cease production and begin clearance from the system, B-mol and clock are once again expressed, which starts another circadian day.
I see.
So that happens every 24 hours.
Okay.
B-mol and clock comes out, per and crypt come out and stop it. They then, over a certain period in that 24 hours, they generate too much of themselves, they go away, and B-mol and clock come back out, and you are back to another 24-hour cycle.
Gotcha.
That's how all that takes place. Where polyamines come in is the polyamine levels also signal per and cryptochrome to not dysregulate, to be regulated properly, so that dysfunction takes place properly. Because per and cryptochrome can become dysregulated. And in a dysregulated per and cryptochrome, because of so much circadian rhythm tomfoolery, you don't drink too much at night, you don't go to bed properly, there's too much interference over enough time, you can dysregulate and dysfunction the circadian rhythm. A second shift worker, for example, abuses that process every time he goes to work. And that function can become dysregulated. Per and cryptochrome can become either over or under expressed. Polyamines keep them in a proper expression level. Polyamines are produced in the intestines, okay, to a large extent. We do take them in our mouths and stuff, but we do produce our own, and a great deal of them are produced in a properly functioning and healthy intestine. And they then have a biological feedback to the circadian rhythm bundle of superchiasmatic nucleus in the brain. They serve to regulate superchiasmatic nucleus functions and signals, but they also upregulate AMPK and downregulate mTOR. They're a very anabolic stimulator. Polyamines are a very anabolic stimulator.
Okay, great stuff. And we talked about a study where mice were given polyamines and LKM512.
Yep.
And the result of that is the genetic expression of 21-month-old mice was the exact same as the genetic expression of 10-month-old mice.
Exactly.
So by raising polyamine levels,
yes,
these mice gave a genetic expression that was more than half of what they should have been.
Exactly.
So we're talking about reversing aging
absolutely, here. Absolutely. It is unequivocally tied. Polyamines are indisputably tied to the aging process. The older you get, the less they produce, the less you have of them. And that's why it's important to generate higher levels of them. Higher levels of them are generated as a result of high-intensity anabolic exercise. It's a fact. LKM5-12 is a probiotic strain that uniquely on its own stimulates the production of polyamines in the intestinal level, at the intestinal level. So if you're taking a probiotic supplement, make sure it's got LKM5-12 in it, because you will stimulate polyamine production at the intestinal level. Your own biosynthesis, where you're not taking it in from outside, you're creating your own, which is always better because your body tends to know at a static level what it needs and produces just what it needs. Doesn't overproduce or underproduce.
Right.
So if you can stimulate your own internal production of these polyamines at the in a clean intestinal level with this LKM5-12, you're miles ahead, because as you can plainly see, it stimulates AMPK, downregulates mTOR, cuts the genetic level expression in half, returns you to a much more youthful genetic expression.
That's phenomenal.
Yes, it is.
Getting down to the cellular level, this is what our cells expect of us. This is what we need to give them. It's completely within our control to give our cells what they need. And in doing so, we're talking about completely eliminating diabetes, cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, and a myriad of other diseases.
But indeed, it truly is there. I mean, the DNA is the code. If anybody asks me what I consider health to be, can I define the quality of good health? Good health is the application of the DNA program. If we would obey the code written in our DNA, then our cells would perform according to that code. It's us that absconds with that code. We're the ones that mess it up. We're the ones that refuse to apply ourselves to what the cells ask of us. We get a sense then of ourselves as a whole human being, but then we also get the sense that we are no longer able to, with disregard, do anything that we care to do to ourselves. We now must take a look at what we require to generate that quality of health, that application of the proper DNA code.